Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. My name's Tina and I make videos on lifestyle, home decor, and DIY projects every single week, and today's video is all about creating your own art. And I have done a wall art video before, but I wanted to focus specifically on boho art this time around. I think that creating your own art really is the easiest and most cost-effective way to really refresh your space, especially for summertime right now. And also it's a lot more personable because you can really customize any one of these pieces to your own style. And I also want to add that the first piece in this video is like literally the easiest thing ever. But I wanted to include it because I really wanted to show you guys that making art does not have to be intimidating. It can be easy and fun and a really enjoyable process. So I hope that you guys like all of these projects. And without further ado, let's get into the first one. Hello from the voiceover. So as I mentioned in the beginning, we are going to start off with the easiest custom piece of minimal boho art ever. And for the materials, I'm going to use a paintbrush, some water, gouache, which if you're not familiar with is kind of like a mix between watercolor and acrylic, and this set is a really cheap one that I got from Michael's. And of course we need paper, and for this piece I'm just using some cardstock since this piece does not have many layers of paint on it. So I'm starting off by wetting an old palette that I have, and most of the colors in here are usually what I use already when creating minimal boho art pieces. But one of my favorite colors to use for a boho vibe is yellow ochre, and it's just this perfect deep mustardy yellow color. And then I have burnt sienna, which is the most beautiful rusty orangey brown color. And then I also have a mix of peach and red, which I really like to use to make pinky peach tones. And for the rest of the color palette, I just have a bunch of varying shades of browns that I have mixed together previously. First, I'm going to dip my brush into the water so that I can create a very light wash of the burnt sienna color, and this gives you a really nice dimensional effect, and it almost looks like watercolor, but it's a little bit more forgiving than watercolor. The first shape I'm creating is an arched bowl shape. This does not have to be perfect, and it could look as organic as you'd like it to, and here you can see I'm just painting it just to the right of the paper. And right above that, I'm going to make a smaller arched bowl shape in a peachy orange color. And then to add some juxtaposition, fancy art term here, I'm going to create a blobby rectangle shape with a darker orange. And this is just going to offset the curves of the arches and just kind of create more balance within the piece. And right on top of that, I'm going to overlap another smaller rectangular blob in the yellow ochre color. And I just love this color so much because I think it really does brighten up the piece and gives it a little bit of a pop. And now to balance out all of the lines in this piece, I'm going to create a very light wash of peach and create a circle here. And then I'm also going to create another one on the top left hand. So if you look at the piece overall, you'll see that there are 3 pairs within this piece, and that really is pleasing to the eye, and I think it looks so minimal and so good. I think that abstract pieces like this really allow you to experiment and to have fun because there really is no right or wrong way to do this, and I think that no matter what kind of shapes and arrangement that you come up with, the color palette really does tie it together to create this boho vibe. And I also wanted to mention that when I let this dry, the little circle on the left hand corner had some really nice texture on it, and I think this was such a happy little accident and really adds some nice texture to the piece. So as I mentioned before, this piece really is the easiest one of all, so if you're not confident in your artistic abilities, I hope this project encourages you to experiment more and just have fun with creating art. So moving on to the next piece, this one is going to be very graphic and is inspired by African mudcloth. And first I'm going to go in with a burnt sienna gouache as my background color. And when I'm painting with this color, I'm going to make sure that it's not as watery so that we can have a very nice deep background color. So I'm going to create a box with some rounded corners, and I'm also going to leave about ½ an inch around the whole thing to create a border. When laying down this color, I'm really making sure that I'm just brushing up and down so I can create some really nice vertical lines. And after you get it how you like it, make sure that you let it dry all the way through before moving on to the next step. To give myself a bit of a guide, I'm going to use some very thin washi tape, and the one that I'm using is not super sticky so that it doesn't peel off any of the paint underneath, but here I'm just going to create some rows and columns. And originally I wanted this design to stick to a grid look, but you'll see later on that I end up taking off some of this tape and just using it as a guide as I go through each row. And for the design, you want to use a nice opaque white paint. So for this, I'm using the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White, which is my favorite white paint to use, especially for pieces like this. But if you don't have that on hand, acrylic will work just fine. And as for the brush, I'm using a super thin one. This is my favorite for line work, and I'll be sure to link it down below. So for the mudcloth design, I reference many photos on the internet, and I suggest that you would do the same so you can pick out your favorite looks. But I really just began painting in the lines and the V's and just repeating it down the column. This really did take a lot of precision, so you want to make sure that you go slow. And then after completing this first column, I really just use it as a guide so that I can go through and make sure that all of my lines were even and straight as I move throughout the piece. But really it is a lot of repetition of V's and lines and dots. And I made sure to keep looking at different reference photos so that I can create the perfect combination of patterns. So while I'm painting this, I wanted to make sure that I give a little bit of a background on African mudcloth, which hails from Northern Africa and is a local tradition of hand-woven fabric. The designs themselves have a special meaning that is passed through generations, but today we can see that it's pretty popular within Western design for its bold, graphic look. This painting takes a lot of precision and patience, but I promise you that it is worth it because in the end, I feel like I had such a beautiful handmade piece. And since I did it on cardstock paper, it really did look like a print that I could find at the store. And I love how bold and graphic this is to add to my walls. One core element of Bohemian design is really to incorporate a mixture of different world cultures. And I think that this adds such a nice touch to my home decor. So for this last piece, I'm going to use a square canvas that I've had laying around for quite some time, and this painting will only have 2 colors in it. So first I'm going to start off by mixing some paints to create the perfect shade. So for my background, I'm mixing a light green, an orange, and a pale pink to get the right shade of brown, and then I'm going to add in a ton of white to really lighten it up and make it a nice creamy color. And notice here that I'm using a palette knife to mix all the colors. I want to avoid using a brush when I'm mixing this many colors because then you'll get color streaks, and I definitely do not want that. So this will create a nice even color. So you might have noticed that I'm using a plastic container to mix all of my colors, and the one I'm using is just the little guacamole containers from Chipotle. I like to reuse these, and since I'm creating so much of this color, I want to use it for multiple layers and to keep it fresh, so having a lidded container really helps you here. Alright, so once you have your color just right, we want to give our canvas a nice even coat of this color, and here I'm just using a flat brush and I'm making sure that I paint vertically and horizontally across the whole canvas to ensure that I get an even coat. And don't forget to paint the sides of the canvas too. This really just finishes it off and gives it a nice complete look. And then after letting that dry, I'm going to give it another coat so that the color is perfectly even. So after painting the 2 coats, I'm going to create an arch in the middle of my canvas. And here I'm going to use the compass hack with a piece of string and a pencil. And this will really create a nice curve for the top of my arch. Then I'm just going to draw in my vertical lines and then finish it off by squaring the bottom. And when you're using pencil, make sure that you do this very, very lightly so that you won't see it when you paint over it. So now I'm going to draw the design within the arch, and this painting is inspired by a piece that I saw on Pinterest, and it features a moon with some stars and some nice wavy lines, which I think symbolizes the ocean. So that's exactly what I'm going to do here in pencil. Now with the peachy terracotta color, I'm going to fill in my arch, and to give this some texture, I'm going to use gouache again, and I'm just going to mix some peach, sienna brown, and dark orange to get this color. And now after letting that dry, I'm going to go back in with the original background color paint and use a fine-tipped paintbrush to draw in the design. And here you want to be very, very careful and very, very slow so that you can create some nice crisp lines. And if you make any mistakes, it is super easy to fix since this is only 2 colors. You can always go back in with either one of the colors to fix up the edges. And that's all there is to this piece. This two-tone design is so minimal, but it is so detailed and super, super dreamy. I really love the color combo, and I think that this would look so good in a bedroom or a living room. I also really want to create a wooden frame around this canvas for that extra finishing touch, but maybe that'll be a DIY project for another day. So those were all the projects for today's video. Let me know in the comments down below which one was your favorite and if you're planning to make any DIY art for your home this summer. I think that my favorite one has to be the Arch Moon piece, and I really love the colors of it. I think on camera the colors are a little bit more washed out, but it is just like the perfect color palette, especially to match with my room. The techniques to create this painting really isn't that difficult. It just takes a lot of patience. And trust me, it did take me a couple of coats to get it looking this good, but I'm super, super happy with how it came out. And like I mentioned in the voiceover, I really want to have like some type of wooden frame around this just because I think it'll look so much better. I literally got these canvases from the thrift store. They were like a pack of 4 for a really great price, so I just wanted to make something out of it, and now that I have made something out of it, I want it to look a little bit more fancy. So look out for a future video where I frame this piece. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up down below. It really helps me out a lot. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel for new videos every single week. And the last thing I want to plug is my Instagram. If you guys don't already follow me there, I just made a big announcement, and I will be talking more about that on this channel. And I'm so excited to share with you guys this news because that means that new content is coming. And that's it for today's video. Stay inspired, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!